Welcome to the Sub Hub podcast. I'm Danny Moreno.
And I'm MK Sullivan.
And today we have two of America's finest, maybe even I should go on to say world's finest sub-ultra runners who happen to be American, Andy Wacker and Grayson Murphy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Happy that you guys are here. So we brought them on today because we want to talk about the Trail team, a very exciting new team in our space, especially when it comes to sub ultra. I think it's fair to say that everyone is really excited about this since we've been hearing about it, seeing on social media, etc. And we just kind of want to get a deep dive into everything that's happened since your initial launch, Andy, see how things are going, etc. So word on the street is you have now selected your team. How was that process?
Yeah, it was great. It was really competitive, which is like, maybe I was too optimistic, but I was like, yeah, it's gonna happen. And so we got over 140 people to apply. And to me, I was like, oh, that's not that many. But then like everyone who applied was really good. So like under the caveat that they're elite athletes. So yeah, it was really cool just to get like a big turnout for the first year.
That's awesome. And yeah, sorry to backtrack because I just feel like I'm in the know, but could you give a quick summary of what the Trail team even is?
Sure. Yeah. So it's the first developmental team for trail running in the country. And so kind of the idea is that like we have all these really good runners and people who are like also like triathletes, skiers, like come from different backgrounds who eventually become trail runners. And in the past, there's been nothing. And so like, it's so funny. I was asking like, even like Joe Gray, like tons of these people like that. You're like, oh, how'd you get into trail running? And he's like, I don't know. Like this guy talked to me one time and I like did a trail race and I liked it. And so like, there hasn't been a clear like pipeline for trail until now. And so we're helping to build that. And I think there's going to be a lot more in the future, but we're the first step in helping find all the talent in the US and just help support those athletes to become pro trail runners.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think we all have similar stories of who knows what. There's not like a very clear recipe to finding trail runners and who is going to end up being like a great trail runner or someone that's contributing to, top 10 results and stuff like that. I'm very curious about like, why now? Like you are very much, in my opinion, you still have an entire career ahead of you. You are one of the best, if not, one of the world's best sub ultras ever. And just curious, like, why now? Why not 5 years ago? Why not 5 years from now?
So I kind of wish it was 5 years ago. Because I think like this has been something that's been brewing for a while. And it just, I think like I've been a pro trail runner for like 8 or 9 years. And at some point, I think it's funny because I was talking to Grayson about this recently, but I'm pretty sure is when I first met Grayson, which was 2019, which was at the US Mountain Running Champs. Like it was a very clear moment of me being like, so that was, let's see, like 3.5 years ago. I'm 34, so I was 31 at the time. And I was like, I'm making my like 6th mountain running team in a row. Like when are more young guys going to beat me? And so I just remember that being like a really clear thought that year. And so I think like it was a transition of being like, I've been a pro for a couple of years. I'm not new to the sport anymore. Like how can I help develop like the future athletes? And I think I was kind of doing it anyway at that point, but it became like more of a thought that was in the forefront of my mind. And I like kind of been going out of my way to like talk to young athletes entering the sport, like people that come to mind, like in 2021, I really remember talking to Eli Hemming and Eddie Owens. And I was like, how can no one see these guys are like the future of the sport? And it was just really clear to me that like I was in a place where I could help mentor them in some ways, give them, a little bit of advice. But also like was one of their peers because I was racing them. And at the time they were kicking my butt and still are. And so, so I think that was like a turning point was a few years ago. And then now is the time. Like it's really important that we keep on developing the future for trail running. And I definitely want to keep on winning and competing as the best I can. But I don't want to be like 50 years old and be on the mountain running team. We'll just put it that. That's like excessively old. But like, because Max King's like 43 and still kicking everyone's butt too. So I don't want to put a certain number on it. But I think there's a lot of talent below, like younger than me, and that's coming up. And they just pairing this like incredibly talented, fit young athletes with people like Grayson, myself, Adam Peterman, and Allie, who just have a ton of experience. And you too, like MK and Danny, like being able to have like people who have been there give advice to the people who are young and up and coming is really cool.
Yeah. I'm curious, out of the 140 plus athletes that you had apply, how did you go about actually choosing like the final team? Did you use kind of like somebody like Grayson is like a template of, that athlete that leaves college and goes straight into mountains? Like, what was your final decision-making process?
Yeah. And there's like, I can only go into so many details because there's a little bit of secret to that process, just so that we won't get harassed in the future to be on the team or something. Yeah. But I mean, okay. So the first thing was like, you should only apply if you met certain parameters. You had to be basically like willing to take the next step to become a pro runner, whatever that means. And so I think, there's low end of that and high end of that of people who are like coming out of the NCAA who are NCAA champions. And there's people who are aspirational to be pro trail runners. So that was the 140. We got people that were meeting, like they were young, they're going to be elite athletes in the future and want to be, and are willing to devote time to that. They also needed to be sub ultra runners. So, our teams just needed to have a focus. And so we decided, since that's my experience and that's what I had more leadership ability for, we wanted it to be sub ultra. Okay. And then how do we narrow it down from there? Oh man. So this gets like really hard because everyone's pretty awesome. So essentially like, here's the process. And then here's what we were looking for, I guess, in general. So the process was, there was a 7-person committee and we went through all 140 applicants. We decided who were the best. And then we interviewed 19 of them. So we interviewed kind of like the top 20 people, 19 in this case, just seemed like a good marker basically. And we just so we could find out more about them. And then that committee of 7 people voted on who they wanted to be on the team. But kind of who we were looking for, I think it came down to a couple things. And that was like, who's really committed to being a pro athlete in the next year? Like who's really like devoted to trail running and making that a priority in their life. Despite that, we all have to balance things in our lives. So that was really important to us. I think we like understand and value that crossover athletes are the future. And so what I mean by crossover athletes are athletes that maybe are track runners right now. Like Grayson is a perfect example of someone who has balanced running, the steeplechase on the track at a high level and trails in the same year. And other people might be like cross-country skiers, for example. But there's a lot of people who balance maybe multiple disciplines of running or other sports along with trail running. So yeah, that's, I think, people who are committed, people who wanted to be good teammates. We were looking to form a team. So that was important to us. And then what's the third one, Grayson? I should know this. We did this 19 hours in a row a couple weeks ago.
Age, I guess you already said that, but we were pretty focused on like 25 and younger. Up to 30 could apply, but we were really looking at like that just coming out of college class, and kind of like fostering development starting right away.
That's awesome. And so you guys selected the team, probably had to tell some people they unfortunately didn't make it. Maybe they reapply next year or so on. So now is this the team for a year, or is it kind of like a multi-year engagement?
Yeah, so it's for the calendar year. And so this was like something we put a lot of thought into. And kind of the short answer is that we're going to select athletes for this calendar year until December 31st. And, looking ahead, you're like, okay, to be a successful pro athlete, you do need consistency. You need like some of these things to happen for longer than just now it's down to 10 months. Mm-hmm. And so when we were thinking about that, we're saying, okay, well, what can we offer? We're offering mentorship is the number one thing. So advice from someone who's been there, someone you want to be in the future. We're offering ways for people to get together for goal races and at training camps that we're going to offer so that they can have a group, a team to like train with and, find out what other people are doing, ask questions of like with their mentors, like kind of really just grow from that experience and from a team environment. So when we're looking at that, we're saying, okay, that is something we want to provide for multiple years. But then the other problem is we also think that there's such a huge need from like this huge talent pool that's coming up. And so we can't just have like the exact same people over and over again, even though that would be awesome because we want to help support them. So kind of the way to balance that would be every year we'll select a new team. Hopefully we'll select more than 6 people next year. Maybe we'll select ultra runners in the future too. But also that these athletes who are like going to graduate our program can come back and maybe they can be mentors in the future. Maybe they can come to trail camps and they can share what they've learned after their first real year of trail running as professional athletes. So hopefully our community is growing rather than being like replaced.
Yeah. No.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So in terms of like the whole team aspect, you were saying training camps, pre-race kind of stuff. Is there like a specific way that you have helped them or wanted them to put together their race calendars so that they're all kind of at the same events or mostly at the same events? How did that look?
Yeah. So we're not like going to tell any athletes what races to do, but obviously I think a big question is like from mentors would be how to help design a calendar, especially if you are a crossover athlete, because I think that's the question, right? It's like, okay, I'm coming off of my NCAA track year and I'm finishing in June. How can I have like the most successful July through December or through the rest of the year or through, for a full 12 months? And so, yeah, we're kind of helping with saying, here's what races we think are important. And those are listed on our website for anyone to see. We've made like an interactive calendar that just shows like kind of what are the races to qualify for Team USA, some of the most competitive and historic sub-ultra trail races in the US, like Mount Washington's on there, for instance. That's a pretty historic race. Pikes Peak's on there, being part of the Golden Trail Series and just being super competitive anyway. So yeah, we're kind of suggesting those races. And I think a lot of our athletes that we were interviewing like kind of had some of the same races in mind. But I think we're not going to limit them to those races, obviously.
That's awesome. Man, I wish I had this when I first started.
Yeah.
That's all I keep thinking is I'm just like so happy for this next gen to have this mentorship, because when I first started, I just like didn't know where to race. And I can imagine they're in that same boat. It's like, what's important, what's not important. And obviously it depends on your approach to the sport and like what you want to get out of it. But, if these athletes want to get a sponsorship as a trail and mountain athlete, like they need to go to Broken Arrow, they need to go to Pikes Peak, just get like their name out there and stuff like that. And I think for any new athletes over the last few years, whenever they've slipped into my DMs, I'm like, yeah, go to these races. These are the races you want to go to. So it's just cool to like promote that too on your website. So someone that maybe didn't get on the team this year, they still know if they show up to those races, these athletes will be there and stuff. So that's just so exciting, all of this. Grayson, so you are a mentor along with Allie and Adam. And for example, like you may do Broken Arrow this year. I don't know what your calendar ends up being, yet you are mentoring this next gen. So like, what does that relationship look like leading up to the race? Because like in the end, they're your peers and they're also your competitors. So I'm just curious if you've like thought about that. Like, day of, do you tell them where to make the move on you to potentially have Lauren Gregory using her 4.5 leg mile speed on the downhill or something like that?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about that part. I wasn't really worried about that part. I don't know if that's like really the person I am, but I don't know. I feel like you and Andy have both been like that with me and given me advice on races too. And I think you can be friends and competitors at the same time. And yeah, maybe that's part of why I do like the mentorship role, because that does come maybe a little more naturally to me than other people. Yeah, so I think I would just imagine myself sharing like any beta I have on like races. Like at Challenge Selena, I told Lauren a lot of things, and like after the race kind of went over it with her and was like, this is where you could have gone to do this. And I did try and get her to come with me like in the beginning too. So I do like that part of it. And I think it'll just make us all better in the end, because they realistically are not that much younger than me, like a couple years younger. So yeah, I think just like kind of sharing like friends instead of looking at them as just competitors. And then I do wish I had Andy and you. So that was very helpful when I was like learning what races to do as well. But yeah, I wish there was a website that had like a calendar, and that would have been so helpful. And we had a lot of applicants too with pretty much like they maybe didn't even have any trail results. So even for them, it's like, okay, how about try a Cirque series, because they are a little less competitive, but like the terrain, I would argue, is as much or more competitive, especially for European mountain racing. And they're a party, so they're super fun. And yeah, so I think just like sharing those tidbits is kind of like what I hope to do. And then with the track athletes, kind of sharing like how to toggle training blocks between track and road and trail, and pick like races and kind of how fast you can switch. Yeah, kind of share that stuff, and maybe I'll hopefully learn from them too, because honestly, I've only done it for 2.5 years also myself. So I'm sure they'll teach me a lot as well.
100%. I didn't expect any other different answer, honestly.
Yeah. And I think that probably all of us have the same feelings just about the trail scene in general. Like as soon as I got into it, it was immediately like people support you, whether you're competing against them or not. And so like, yeah, I will say I have had Danny this last year helping me try to figure out all these races. And we're kind of hoping that with this podcast, we can make people more aware of races, because nobody knows where to go.
No.
and a lot of like sub ultra races especially aren't really covered, in the media space. And so hopefully we can help you guys with that as well, just by like being a voice for results and stuff. But
that was kind of another goal when Andy told me about his idea for a trail team that I kind of latched onto, was just creating like a bigger sub ultra culture in the US, because you go to Italy and they think mountain running is the Super Bowl. They think it's the coolest thing ever. No one confuses you for an ultra runner. They very much know the difference. And I feel like here people are like, oh, you're a trail runner, so you like run 100 miles. And I'm like, no, there's a lot in between. So it'd be just cool to like raise awareness in the US in general about sub ultra.
Yeah.
100%. I was on a run this past summer, and I was running past him. He's like, oh, are you one of those ultra runners? I was like, no, I'm sub ultra. He's like, what's that? And I was like, I just run a lot less, but much faster.
Much faster.
No, I couldn't agree more. And especially with stuff like the Golden Trail, even a couple years ago, in 2021, when I was in the top 5, and I was like, hey, you guys I think you guys are kind of scared. I'm kind of daring you to bring more races to the US because we have some very strong sub ultra runners and they're like, maybe we'll do it. Maybe I was like, just do it and you'll see that I'm right. And then sure enough, Pikes and Flag, we just dominated across the board. And, not all of the top people were there, but there was a lot of them, enough, I think, to make a statement. So yeah, it just makes me even more excited about the trail team.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead, MK.
Oh, I was going to kind of ask Grayson again, like what would kind of your day-to-day or weekly communication or mentorship look like for these athletes?
I think it kind of depends on like what they want and need. I'll be as open as I need to, like they'll have my phone number, email, whatever. And like I'm very responsive on my phone. So yeah, I would answer anything. But yeah, more general advice, I would say. Like I won't be writing training plans or coaching or anything. We do kind of anticipate people having their own coaches. So we will be more of like just advice and people to bounce ideas off of.
I love that.
Yeah. One thing
Andy.
I was just thinking of when you guys were saying this is like, there's actually like a lot of pieces to the mentorship piece. And that's like why it's listed first on our website for like what we offer. And so like when I was thinking about like what I thought athletes would need when they're like, for example, transitioning from college, to being pro trail runners, I actually like called and talked to a bunch of people because I was like, I think I know, but I'm also, it's been a while since I graduated. And I remember like, Danny, maybe like you were saying, like, I made so many silly mistakes when I graduated. Like, I like talked to like a local running club to like ask them to sponsor me. And they were like, no, we don't do that. Yes. We just help adults run together. And I was like, oh, oops. So I was like super embarrassed. But yeah, so I think there's like a lot of pieces to it. Like you don't think about like, when I was talking to a lot of these athletes, like they just don't know about like what it looks like to sign a professional contract. Like they don't know how to approach race directors to get into races. They don't know like what the different options are for them. Like, can you go run a road race? Like, what does that look like? Who do I talk to get into that road race? And so I think there's like a lot of those pieces that are equally important. So like Grayson's been such an awesome voice for that in terms of saying like, I think there's just like so many questions with sponsorship and like what social media looks like and what sharing your story looks like. And do you have to be on social media? Like all of those things come out. And it's really cool if you're a mentor and you're like just kind of probing and inspiring these athletes to like actually think about those things that they're going to have to be faced with in the next year or so. So anyway, I was just thinking about that. Like that's super important. And I think it's been really fruitful already with like the few athletes we've just had like conversations with.
Oh, 100%. Right before this, MK and us, we were chatting about Grayson and how, you had not only were you an amazing track road athlete coming to the trails, you were already an outdoor enthusiast, Monday. But on top of that, like you already had an incredible brand coming into the sport. So everyone was very aware that you were entering the sport. And so, just with the athletes' names that you shared with me, I was like going through their social medias and I was like, wow, how cool is it for them to have someone like you who's able to build up their brand and help them find their voice and their why and what they can share. So, because as we all know, that is part of a lot of sponsorships this year. Like they asked for that and different branding opportunities, etc. So yeah, I just think that's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that might be the mentorship piece I'm most excited about. Because honestly, I think for Danny and Andy, you probably know more races than I do, and you've both been to more races than me, but I do think I can offer some perspective on like the branding side and also the contract side. I think a lot of trail people I've talked to don't work with agents, and it's just been interesting to kind of hear things and talk to people. And one of my goals eventually is to be an agent, I think, for women, especially. I think that's a very underrepresented group, and it's kind of an old man's club right now that maybe should be broken up a little bit and diversified. But yeah, I think that's like contract literacy and what to say yes to and what you should not say yes to, and like tricks that might be pulled on you and what to look for in a contract are things that I'm like excited to kind of share with people and go into. Because I do think that is something kind of hidden and not talked about too much that we could really shed some light on and help people with.
100%.
Yeah, I think that'll be huge.
Yeah.
I think that's the mentorship we all need.
Yeah. We're all invited.
Not that none of us talk about it though, because
Yeah.
But yeah. but yeah. No.
Jason and I've been to like the USATF annual meeting, and there's actually like support for like Olympic track athletes. And I'm thinking like it is, no offense, because I love all our like track team, and especially, but it seems like, there's this limited number of Olympic like sprinters basically, and they get this great advice and they get support from USATF to like do the things we're talking about. And it just doesn't exist for trail. And so I think that's going to be really important, is just like educating, and like we're like the trail community is already there. Like you're saying, like people are so supportive, like we can race each other and like be super competitive and like push each other to the best and like most amazing performances. But then at the end of the day, I think we're friends. And I think that's really cool. So we're just like leaning on that community aspect to like help build each other up and support that growth as the sport grows more and more over the next few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like with the, professionalism aspect that we're all experiencing right now, it's such a cool nexus in the sport right now, where it's growing very rapidly and very, very effectively and efficiently. And like reaching out to races 4 years, 5 years ago when you and me, Andy, were doing that, compared to now, like navigating the UTMB World Series or Golden Trail World Series, like there's deadlines and you're not exactly talking to the direct race directors. So just navigating that space and knowing who to talk to, how to sell yourself into a race. I made many mistakes with that and learned how to what not to say. So yeah, that's amazing.
I would love to see too, I guess, just another perspective, being like at road races and seeing like what it's like to be treated like an elite athlete at the road race, and then compare that to trail races. At road races, everything is paid for. They put you up in a hotel. They manage your transportation to and from the airport. You don't have to do anything. And you can even get appearance fees to just show up. And then you go to trail races and nothing is funded. There's very little prize money. And it would be cool to kind of see that. Take some pages out of the road racing book to make it more professional in trail running too.
Yeah. So I was looking around the website a little bit, and you mentioned earlier that the mentors are at the top of the page, right? And I noticed that you guys also had like a dietitian listed. What other supports are you guys planning on adding to that, if any, at this point?
Man, that's a great question. It's something we've thought about a lot, and we've been waiting to really communicate with the team that we select to see what they want and need. And so that's like I said, I started with like, here's what I know and what all the mistakes I made when I was coming out of college and like becoming a pro runner. And then I tried to ask people and say like, hey, what do you need? So I surveyed a bunch of athletes before I even started anything. And then now I think it's like, we got to ask the 6 people we selected. So I think like a diet, like someone who knows nutrition is important for our team. So that's why it's already on there. But like, I know Grayson and I, for example, both work with strength coaches, and I know that's important. I know all of us have PTs and chiropractors and people we see. So like, there's a lot of people that surround an athlete to make them successful. And we're just, hoping to make sure that that support is there, whether that's, and also, also like sports psychology. That's another thing that isn't listed that could be on there.
That's awesome. Cool. Again, wish I had that. So I'm so happy this next gen is getting that from you guys and beyond. Do you have success criteria? Like once you come, I guess, December 31, 2023, and you look back, obviously this is the first one. So, you're trialing it, but what would help you sleep at night if you're like, yeah, we did a good job. And now we're ready for the next batch.
This was my big question for Andy. So I made him answer it before we did anything else.
Nice.
We literally had this conversation. It was great. And I was like, Grayson, we already succeeded. I was like, literally, we already succeeded, because like, I remember before applications opened, when I was like talking to athletes, like surveying them to see like what they needed, I was like, I wouldn't have done this 1 year ago. And now I'm talking to people I wouldn't have talked to, and I'm helping answer their questions about what it's like and how to become a pro trail runner. And so like the day that happened, I was like, wow, like I feel so fulfilled and like so excited about this, that like, that seems like a victory. And we could have like nothing else happen and we'd still be super successful. But I think we're going to do a lot more. So I think that's exciting too. So yeah, I think there's a lot to it. Like, obviously, like there's like building a community. So I think like by having people carpool and share accommodations at a race and like get to a race prepared when they might not have, great. That's a success. I think having people either get international race experience or either make that or make a US team, that would be amazing. Like that'd be really cool. I think those are our long-term goals. Maybe that won't happen this year with some of these athletes, but maybe that's a year away or a year and a half. And so I think, yeah, there's kind of multiple layers and different aspects to what we're looking for.
That's awesome.
I think also from like a business perspective, establishing name recognition and logo recognition is, I would consider, a success too, just to make everything more sustainable moving forward and make sure people know what Trail Team is, what we're about, that we're a nonprofit, that it's not like a typical sponsorship per se, but that it is something valuable to up and coming sub-ultra people.
I love that. It's kind of like going to like a prestigious college and, it's like, oh, you ran at Colorado? Shit, you like know your shit, And the same with the trail team. If they're like, yeah, I was on the trail team in 2023, it's like, all right, like you're ready to go in this sport. That's awesome. And then the community aspect, like showing up to a race and having people there and not being by yourself, like that alone can help a race like result, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, making friends, like just on the Golden Trail series this year. Like I remember the first race I went to, I was so nervous because I didn't really know anybody. And by the second race, like Andy and Danny and like all these other people had taken me in, and I was like, okay, it's going to be fine. Like I can do this now. And when you don't have those successes that you want to have, like those people are there waiting for you at the end, no matter what. And so I think it's going to be great to have that team aspect the whole year.
Totally. And like with trail running too, like if you go into the roads, you're mostly going to stay in the US, whereas like the trail, you're like 20 something year old and you're going to Europe or like another place, which can be really scary. So to have people there that, and help you through that life experience is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so do the athletes like sign contracts for the trail team? And is one of the ultimate goals like to help them get a contract, like their own personal contract by the end of the year?
So they don't have to sign anything because, again, like we're just doing this because we want to help them. So we have like certain expectations that people interact, right? Like they work with their mentor, that they show up at trail camps and they help make their teammates better, either by supporting them or by literally like running with them. But yeah, I think our goal is to help our athletes meet their goals. And so like, I know that's a little vague, but like some people want to get sponsored and that's like the most important thing. And that like will help them continue to race at a high level. And that's great. Of course we're going to support that. But we also want to support people like with whatever their goals are. And some of those are like, because I think like a lot of people are doing it for like their own reasons and like they're intrinsically motivated, right? So like winning like a local race or like doing something might be just as important as getting some big sponsorship deals. So we want to make sure they're meeting all those goals.
Yeah. And I think that we've probably all had a learning experience where chasing a contract is never the best idea when you're trying to race. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and talking with us. Do you guys have any last things you want to say about the trail team? Shout out.
I want to know like where you all are going to be. Like, what are some of the races that we're going to see the trail athletes at this year? So for those listeners, they can come and fan out on the fangirl and fanboy, the trail team.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be at Sunapee. We're going to be at Broken Arrow. We're going to be at Pikes. And then I'm sure we're going to be at a lot of other races. Hopefully we're going to have a contingent going to the World Cup races, which are definitely have been a challenge and a battle for North American athletes to get to before, because they're almost all in Europe, except this year Broken Arrow is one of them. So hopefully we'll have some athletes there too.
That's awesome. Are they going to be wearing singlets, like trail team singlets?
Yeah. So speaking of, before we go, I have so many things I want to tell you guys, but
please do.
I want to talk about what we might have coming in the next 12 months, because I'm super excited about all of those things. And I want Grayson to talk about some of this too. But yeah, some of the things that we're excited about are, okay, here's a few things that are coming soon. One is like, we want to help more than 6 people. I've been talking about community. We said the word community like 20 times already, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first thought is, and this is coming really soon, you guys are kind of some of the first to know, but we're going to have a club team that's going to be about 30 more people. And all 6 people and the 30 people are going to be wearing similar, not the exact same, because 6 people get special jerseys, trail team jerseys. And it's like sending that message we were talking about before with Grayson, with branding, where we're saying like, we want to have like this message that we are the best up and coming trail athletes in the country. Dogs are going crazy. The next thing is we want to help put on like events, like not a bunch of events, but we want to help put on. My idea is to have like, not just like, everyone loves club cross country. I think this is like Danny's thing, by the way. I'm totally stealing your thunder, but we're going to do it.
Okay. Do it.
You want to have a battle of the brands. Danny, I think that's coined by you.
Yes.
A team trail championship. And so my idea would be like a relay, 3-person, maybe like run up, like first leg runs something like a VK up a big ski mountain. Second leg runs like a rolling 10K on top of a mountain. And the third leg bombs down, only downhill. MK, that could be you. I don't know. Bottom of the ski hill with a big finish. So we're going to be putting on hopefully a race like that in the next like 18 months, like next year we'll have one.
I love that. I know I get so jealous that all the Europeans are doing cross country season and we have like 2 options, or it's just very seldom. And I'm like, dang, I want to jump over shit and like get dirty, run fast.
And they're so hard to get to.
I know.
Wish list is to have like a trail team contingent show up at Club Cross, everyone in the same jersey. And I do think like the top 6 in like maybe me and Allie Mack, like that'd be a great team.
That'd be a scary team.
Win. Yeah. So I think it'd be fun to just like do stuff like that too, and include more community members, because you can have as many as you need at Club Cross. And then my other idea, which maybe we can add this to our race series, Andy, of unique race experiences.
The Grayson Murphy Classic.
Yeah.
Grayson
Murphy Classic. Yeah. So it'd be like a stage race, but you do like track 5K one day, maybe cross or road something the next day, and then like a real mountain race the final day, and accumulate your time over the 3 days, and then see who wins. Because I think it would be fun to highlight that like some of our crossover athletes like really are that talented, and that is a special skill set. And just because you're good on the track doesn't mean you're good on the trails, and vice versa. And it would just be cool to kind of shed some light on some of the things people like to say that aren't so fun.
I would run this race.
Yeah, it'd be so fun.
I would do it.
You only get one pair of shoes.
Grayson Murphy Classic. Save the date.
I'll be there.
3 days.
No, I love that. And honestly, that's like one of the top reasons I'm so excited about this team is just shedding light on our sport, and that, you know, sometimes it gets bashed on, but people don't actually know until they race us that it's like, oh, this is actually really hard. And being able to go back and forth and like have speed and strength and like maintaining that balance is very difficult. And so bringing those crossover athletes, et cetera, like pretty much all of us are here. It just makes a really good recipe for a great trail athlete, but just like longevity in the sport too, I think all around. So that's really exciting. Okay, wait, now this got me really excited. So if they're wearing jerseys, what if they sign a contract halfway through the year? Do they then switch jerseys?
Yeah. So again, we're just here to be supportive. I think my wording has been like, we want to be and not or, right? We're not a normal sponsorship. So like, yeah, if they sign a great deal with what was it, Flaming Hot Cheetos? We just made up a group talking to people. If you sign a Flaming Hot Cheetos deal and you got to wear a Flaming Hot Cheetos jersey, that's okay. Like we'll compromise, and we still want to like, you're still going to get mentorship. You're still going to be at our trail camps and training, because like usually Flaming Hot Cheetos doesn't offer training camps, but maybe they do now. I don't know. And so yeah, it's supposed to be an and, not an or.
You can just get them a hat. A trail team hat.
Or some sweatpants.
Yeah, some sweatpants. Or some tattoos.
Sweatpants weren't on the list yet, but
we're trail team.
Permanent tattoos. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Class of 23.
That's awesome. Well, if and when those races happen, sign me up, because those sound great. And I think, again, just bring you more excitement to the sub ultra space, which is a big reason for this podcast and for your trail team. We'll just, it'll be beautiful. I could see it now. That's awesome. Any other closing remarks?
We're excited.
We're excited.
I think we're very excited. We'll announcing soon.
Yeah, on Friday, March 3rd. So I don't know when this will air, but check out Trail Team on Instagram. Check out our website. It's trail-team.com. It's kind of easy to remember. And check out who the team is and support them. And thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah. We'll be fundraising also. So stay tuned. Yeah.
We'll definitely include that. Sorry, go ahead. We'll include that in the show notes, links to your Instagrams and to the Trail Team Instagrams. And upcoming, as a follow-up to this podcast, we actually will be doing interviews with the Trail Team, just some quick 15 to 20-minute interviews so everyone can get to know them, get to know who's going to be probably kicking their ass pretty soon in the best way possible, because it's going to make all of us better. I couldn't be more excited for this community and this team. So, yeah.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, MK.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.